What's going on, guys? D-pad first. Welcome back to more of my thoughts. And in this video, yes, I feel that EA has easily given me the worst conference in the history of E3. EA's conference, E3 2017, was absolutely awful. I mean, it wasn't just like really cringy things happening throughout, because that's almost every conference. Like, you get at least one or two really bad, really cringe moments, but they open up with all of these guys wearing Tom Brady jerseys, and they start out with Madden, and I guess it's gonna have some sort of like story feature now, which is cool if you really love Madden and that style of play when it comes to the game of football, because it's not very authentic. Definitely the last game that came out was maybe the best Madden has been since Madden 2005. And that's saying a lot. That is saying a lot, because that's a big gap. That is like one really good football game, every 10 years or better. I'm not saying like that all of the other Maddens were horrible or something, but they still don't play as well as NFL 2K5 or All Pro Football 2K8. That's my opinion. That's my take. I think I just feel like 2K still does some things better than Madden, and not just with the football games, but with NBA 2K as well. And we'll talk about NBA Live in a second. But yeah, just the cringe dude, the cringe guys wearing all the Tom Brady jerseys. I'm like, oh my god, here we go, you know what I mean? And then I think shortly after that, we got Battlefield. Night maps are coming to Battlefield 1. There's going to be an expansion for that. So that could be really cool. I think people have been wanting some night maps for a while. Need for Speed Payback. I think it has really nice visuals, but the gameplay overall looked, just kind of acceptable, above average, nothing really all that special. Again, that's just my opinion. Maybe it ends up being a great game. I don't know, but I would agree with many other people that are saying it feels a little Fast and Furious-y, if you will. You know what I mean? It's got that kind of theme to it. Tale of Two Brothers creator is bringing A Way Out. Now, this was probably, and because we don't have any other conferences yet, this was probably the most interesting game they had to show, and is so far the most interesting game for E3. It does look interesting. Like I said, this could be really good, but I don't like that it's split screen only. I think they're really pushing for that for whatever reason, and he feels like it could be like a game changer for games like that, co-op type experiences. I think you get a very similar effect, and people can have just as much fun if they have their own screen for their own character in a game like that. I would rather have my own screen. I'm not saying I'm never going to buy it or anything like that, because it, given the developer and given the game that they made, so highly praised, kind of flew under the radar originally. I don't think a lot of people expected it to be, all that special, but it did, so that's why they're giving them the benefit of the doubt when it comes to A Way Out, and rightfully so. So we got our first look at NBA Live 18, and I guess the visuals are really good, but man, when they were doing some dunks and layups and such, it still looked a little clunky. They are not on the level, again, with like, physics and things like momentum being respected. You can still see that by looking at it, the way that some of the dunks were happening and such. I'm just not feeling it. They are. I don't know if they're ever going to catch 2K at this point. It's like a developer trying to out Rockstar or out GTA, Rockstar. It's just, things are so far gone at this point that they're just in their own league. I'm not saying you can't still make a good open world game or even a good basketball game, even with those things being said, but I just think I don't want to say it's a lost cause, because there's money to be made, there's room for competition, but in some ways it does feel like a loss, especially with people can still make great open world action experiences similar to GTA 5, but I think the basketball thing is pretty wrapped up, where I think if 2K were still able to make football games, you would have a completely different football situation in the market. I feel like if that had never happened with the license for the NFL, we would still have a pretty good battle with both of those games going back and forth. It's like I always say, I've said this 1,000 times, I used to buy both games every year, but you know, this is the example I always give. You can look at what happened with Madden and say to yourself, this is the kind of market, this is the kind of industry we would have if it was only Sony making consoles, or only Microsoft making consoles, or only Nintendo making consoles, because without, you know, the lack of competition, it breeds laziness. You know what I mean? It just does. It's simple. So I think Battlefront 2 looks really good just from a presentation visuals standpoint. They nailed that with the first game. Visuals and sound. It's definitely Star Wars, right? They have some pretty good looking character models and stuff. Animations are decent. Maybe I would even give them a pass and say they're above average, but those animations really need work, and honestly, I can't see them changing too much at this point, but a lot of those animations, even from the first game, looked really stiff to me. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see how it goes. I doubt that's a game that I would go out and buy day one or anything. I'll wait until it's on Origin Access, I guess. I'm just not that interested. The games that I wanted to see most was like, you know, a return to Dead Space, you know, something about Skate. Like, how long has it been since we actually got a Skate game, and one of the better ones at that? And did I talk about the Visceral Star Wars game? Yeah, so Dead Space, Skate, the Visceral Star Wars game is the one that I wanted most, but they spent so much time talking about Battlefront and then forced you, well, not forced you, but if you continued to watch, that's what you were forced to see, was Battlefront multiplayer. And they have these people commentating like it's some real sporting event. That shit drives me crazy. It absolutely drives me crazy. And I think probably one of the worst things that they have some of these, you know, and it's not just EA that have done this in the past, but like we've seen many times these companies get these YouTubers and sometimes like Twitch streamers involved in some of this stuff. Nobody knows who these people are. The majority of gamers don't know who these people are, and a lot of them don't really play games as much as they would like some of their gaming following to believe. It's just not that serious. I would rather watch the awkward professionals that aren't used to being, you know, out in front of an audience like that come out and talk or commentate some of these games or something. It would work a lot better, because I don't know them either, but they understand their own game better than, you know, some of these YouTubers. You had the one guy that was coming out trying to read the teleprompter. That was super awkward, to say the least. It was just bad. The whole thing was bad all around. At one point there, they were talking about, I think they were talking about Battlefront or showing some gameplay or some concept art for it, and then suddenly it switched back somehow to NBA Live 18. It was just, the whole conference, God, man, just awful. Fuck, it was terrible. It was the worst thing I've ever watched. There was no, I was in Discord with some friends. There was no excitement of any kind. Well, we got maybe semi-excited when we seen the BioWare name pop up for that trailer, and Anthem isn't even going to be shown until later today at the Xbox conference. So looking forward to that. A lot of people are kind of feeling like that's going to be BioWare / EA's answer to Destiny. So always having more shoot and loot games is cool by me, but I'm looking for someone, Sony or Microsoft, to have Borderlands 3, which as far as I'm concerned is probably the shoot and loot king at this point. We need some Borderlands 3 in our lives. So even with that said, I'm sure Anthem could end up being a good game, but BioWare, at least to my knowledge, right, they usually make RPGs, so I'm expecting that game to be an RPG of some kind. Maybe that's the good BioWare team, if there is any good BioWare teams left, as opposed to the one that made Andromeda. And I guess I read somewhere that they had never really made a video game before. Maybe they did some Mass Effect 3 DLC or something. I don't remember exactly how that went, but guys in blazers talking about FIFA, and just, they spent a lot of time talking about these games that everyone knows about. They come out every year. There is no point. Think about, they could have at least gave us, maybe 30 seconds of gameplay for that Anthem game, and then gave us 5 or 10 minutes at the Microsoft showing, right? They could have done that. You could have had stuff like, maybe it wasn't Dead Space that they were going to try and reboot or revive or whatever, but another game that that they're like, it's EA. They are working on tons of games. Just something, anything at all but what we got, and I just think it was awful. It was easily the worst conference I've ever seen in my life, and that's just my opinion. I said this yesterday on Twitter. I don't think there's any way in hell Microsoft, Sony, Bethesda, Ubisoft, and I think Devolver Digital's gonna have one. I don't think there's any way in hell that those guys could have a worse conference. Like, maybe still bad in spots, maybe still cringe in spots, but not this bad, not this boring. Like, I think some of my friends in Discord possibly were falling asleep. It was that dead. It was that dead. Just no interest in a lot of those games. Like Battlefront to some extent, but even that, it's like, okay, it's Battlefront, it looks good. It's Star Wars, it's going to sell. That's really all that needs to be said. So that's my video. That's my take. I will try and put out sort of my own thoughts and opinions or review or whatever for each one of the conferences. So be looking out for those. Thank you guys for the continued support. I really appreciate it. Take it easy. Peace.